Hi, I'm John.
And I'm Meredith.
And this is No Talking in the Library, where we talk in the library, but it's supposed to be about the irony, right?
That's what they tell me.
Right, yeah. So today we're kind of going through a sort of long-running theme of things to do while you can't do things you really want to do because of COVID-19.
And there's really no better way to spend endless hours than binge watching your favorite procedural television show.
Yeah, I could not agree more. This is something that a lot of people share, but that Meredith and I really both share. I mean, we've spent endless hours talking about our favorite procedurals for sure. So do you want to start? Should I start?
Sure. I mean, procedurals, everyone knows them. I think they kind of fall into three main categories, medical, criminal, and legal. And I mean, I've certainly been guilty of watching all of them. I've seen endless seasons of Grey's Anatomy. I've watched my share of Law and Order. But very recently, I have started to watch the David E. Kelly series, The Practice, which is on Hulu right now.
Yes.
I've not watched any of his other series that I know of. I haven't seen Ally McBeal. I haven't seen Boston Legal or Boston Public. But
Boston Legal was the show that The Practice sprung out of, right?
Yes. Yeah. Boston Legal came out of The Practice.
Right. I've seen The Practice. I've only seen the first few Boston Legals.
I've recently sort of decided that I think that legal procedurals are my favorite. I wouldn't call myself an argumentative or confrontational person, so I find it really, really satisfying to watch a show where people argue. And I find it also really satisfying when, a lawyer's in the courtroom and he asks the right question, or, she convinces a witness to incriminate themselves, or lawyers are doing research and they find that crucial piece of evidence that's going to help them win the case. And I would get sad when I would watch Law and Order SVU and they wouldn't have the order or law part. I don't know which associates with which part of the case, because when Benson and Stabler catch the criminal, what I want to see is Alexandra Cabot prosecuting that person in a courtroom. But The Practice is like all courtroom stuff. It's more so legal proceedings, courtroom drama than, and I don't know, you've seen Ally McBeal, right?
Sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if The Practice is way more like legal stuff and less interpersonal drama, is Ally McBeal the inverse of that?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Yeah, so I find The Practice very sad. It really is giving me what I want in terms of that courtroom stuff. And I mean, the characters are not all that interesting. I don't really feel that strongly about Dylan McDermott or Kelly Williams. Cameron Manheim is good. Marla Sokoloff in the third season joins as their
Yeah, I thought Laura Flynn Boyle was really good in that show, especially the early.
Exactly. Thank you. Laura Flynn Boyle is the ADA. She's good. It has the worst theme song I have ever seen on a television show. It is just noise with a lot of a collage of things, and it's like a gun sound and car horns. It's terrible. I hate it every single time. And Hulu doesn't have the skip intro feature that Netflix does. But overall, there's a lot of seasons, which is nice during this time because I can just turn on one episode after another. There's been some great cases. There's story arcs that go over multiple episodes. So there was a long arc about a doctor who was being accused of cutting off the head of a woman. It ended up in his medical bag. He said he didn't do it. They spent a number of episodes trying to prove that he didn't. And then it came back later on where he was being accused of stabbing someone. And it's nice to see those long form storytelling in terms of keeping me engaged. So overall, I'm enjoying watching The Practice.
Yeah, I thought it was quite good. I find Dylan McDermott a little off-putting, but if you like that courtroom stuff, I got something to really turn you on, a little thing called Matlock. Anyway,
I
but
do. They remade it, right?
yeah.
That's because HBO did a remade version of Matlock, which is apparently supposed to be excellent.
Well, remember the conversation we had, I think it was a couple of years ago now, about how like culture has stopped moving forward and it's just like redoing things that's already done. But the difference between these procedurals and something like Matlock is that Matlock is like mostly a job. I mean, it's mostly meant to be sort of like, look at this older gentleman who can make the young people tell the truth or whatever. Whereas these shows are really about the real procedure. So back in the long, long ago, I lived in the sort of last house full of other, people I went to college with. And one of the guys who lived there was a legal investigator. And he started me watching Law and Order back in the very early days. And I've watched a lot of procedurals, enjoy them a lot. The first 8 or so seasons of Law and Order, I think, are as good as procedurals really ever got. It was done. The cast was really good. It established a kind of format. First, there's the police investigation. Then there's the legal stuff. They had great actors for both. They started out with cops. They had George Zunza and Chris Noth. George Zunza went off the show after I think 3 seasons or something like that. They had a sort of little interlude. Then they brought in Jerry Orbach, who I think his only big, was sort of a character actor who had been, I think he was in Dirty Dancing, if I recall correctly. But the Chris Noth, Jerry Orbach pairing of detectives was just really fabulous. They really worked well together. One of the kind of cool things about it was that they really tried to take on sort of legal and ethical issues and play with them. And you were never quite sure how it was going to turn out. So one of the sort of irritating things about, shows on the kind of dragnet model is that, like justice is going to win out. Whereas you would get to the end of early episodes of Law and Order and you would just never know like whether the guilty was going to get away or, they'd be coping with some morally questionable issue. There's an episode about a person who sort of claimed to be able to get autistic people to sort of, or very, very badly disabled people to communicate. And it turned out that they couldn't, but one of the problems was that the parents who were taking their kids there, it was the only thing they could do. And there's a moving scene where the mother of this kid like accosts the DA after the trial and says, okay, so what am I gonna do with him now? Are you gonna take him? And it's, so it raises, I think, some complicated issues. There's another really great, it has that thing that you were mentioning about the people sort of like asking the questions, and it's really brilliant in that respect. Richard Brooks, who played the assistant DA the assistant to the main DA for a lot of years in the beginning, then went off the show, which was Dick Wolf, the producer, liked to kind of like flip the cast around. He basically got rid of Chris Noth and didn't tell him. Like Chris Noth apparently read about it in Variety, found out that he was off the show. Then he went to do Sex and the City, so he had a pretty soft landing. But there's a great scene when Richard Brooks comes back to the show and he's defending a person who's done some sort of dodgy medical device thing, and they have this doctor on the stand who's an expert, and it's like, the doctor's like, well, just because nobody died doesn't mean that it's safe. Richard Brooks is like, that's exactly what it means. And it was just perfect. It was so perfectly delivered, because it's all about, this is how we decide, this is how we make arguments. This is how we decide what's true. This is how justice works, sometimes imperfectly, oftentimes imperfectly, but this is how, as a society, we kind of muddle through. And it's just, it's all on, I don't know if it was all on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's all still there, but if you'd like to come down to the library, we have all 20 seasons, as far as I'm aware, on DVD. So please feel free to come get it from us.
Another show that I really enjoyed is a newer procedural. Unfortunately, it was canceled after just 2 seasons. It is For the People, which I believe aired on ABC between, I think, 2018 and 2019. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of this.
I haven't.
Yeah. is a series about brand new lawyers. So the very first episode, you see them being sworn in, and it follows 6 characters, 3 of which work for the public defender's office, and 3 of them are prosecutors, I believe, working with the state's attorney. And it was just, it's really, I thought, a wonderful show. I thought the characters were really great. I really liked the dynamic between the people who worked for, the public defenders and the people who were working in the more high-powered environment, because they were still friends, and you would see them interact. It featured Anna Devere Smith, who I know we've talked about in our West Wing episode, who I absolutely adore. I still adored in this. She played the clerk of courts or something, and it was her job to I don't know what a clerk of courts does, actually. I don't, so I'm not gonna try and pretend I do. But she played this sort of maternal matriarch person that the lawyers were always trying to get in her favor because she could get them a judge that they wanted. And this is my hot tip, my hot take. Anyone out there is responsible for making a remake of The Facts of Life, you need to cast Anna Devere Smith as Mrs. Garrett. So I'm putting it out there in the universe. She would be an excellent Mrs. Garrett, and you can see it in this show. She's stern, but yet warm, and she's just, I love her, and I wish that I was in more things. I don't know where else I need to watch more West Wing, I think.
Right. Well, that's probably true, but for that and many other reasons. And once again, I think that I completely agree about The Facts of Life. I think someone should make that a thing.
But I found the show really wonderful, and I was very disappointed when it was canceled, because it was just, it's our Britt Robertson, who was in a series called Life Unexpected, I think in 2010, where she was a foster kid who grew up in foster care and then was given back to her parents who gave her up. It was a really weird show setup, but it had Sherry Appleby in it, and Britt Robertson is wonderful as well.
Yeah, I kind of like that show because it was set in Portland, which is where I spent a lot of time. I went to college there, and I was a bike messenger there for a long time. So it was, every episode I would be like, oh yeah, I got, I crashed there. Oh wow, I got hassled by the police there. So I really enjoyed that show because of its sense of place.
But I think what I liked about For the People is that they were brand new lawyers. And so there was a certain, I don't know, it was just, I liked them trying to figure out their place in, the system. It was set in the Southern District of New York court, federal court. And that was always a big thing with them, the mother court. And so they were now part of this storied institution. But I very much enjoyed it. Would recommend it if anyone likes legal shows.
Yeah. Well, I've watched a lot of procedurals of various kinds and a lot of police procedurals, and I had gotten kind of jaded with them. And then I watched The Wire, 2002. David Simon shows out on HBO originally. 5 seasons, all pretty short. I think they're only 12 episode seasons, about a bunch of drug enforcement cops. Well, they're police generally in various departments or various segments of the police service, working in Baltimore, the first 3 seasons, I guess, or about 2 seasons, are about them trying to break down this drug ring. It a little lost its way in seasons 3 and 4, and then finished very strong in season 5. Starred Dominic West as a kind of wisecracking, hard-drinking Baltimore cop. They do a great, I love shows that have a sense of place, and this has a sense of place absolutely perfectly. I grew up I lived in Southern Maryland for a while. I always know the Bmore accent when I hear it, and they did a great job of having people, I can't even imitate it, but those of you who've been around Baltimore will know what Bmore sounds like. They have people drinking Natty Boh, which nobody drinks Natty Boh anywhere else because it's terrible.
They're always eating pit beef.
They're eating pit beef. They got real like people who'd been involved in the gang culture to work on it. And it's the acting is absolutely fabulous. The plotting is really perfect. Some people found it a little slow. I thought it was really great. It has a lot of excellent characters, like strong women characters, LGBTQ characters. It gets the problems of the police really right. It gets the situation of the people in the neighborhoods really right, I think. It shows the complexity. It's quite violent, and also the F word is used quite profusely. So it's not for our younger viewers, but it's definitely really well done. Lance Reddick is in it. He's just absolutely fabulous. Yeah, it gets the sort of, it's police procedural par excellence. Like, so there's not so much court stuff in it. It's much more about how this investigation, this sort of long, this investigative unit works. But it has some incredibly moving things in it too. So there's a point at which one of the gangsters who's gotten sentenced to like multiple life terms, one of the cops, one of the detectives wants to get his son sort of out of life, and he wants to sort of figure out how to do it. And he goes to him and just talks to him and says, look, and they start trading these stories that they both know about, like weird things that happened in the neighborhood and people who got killed and whatever. And then the detective says to him, look, we're the only people who remember this. We're the only people who understand like what all this means. And I want to help your son, and I want you to help me do it. And it's this point at which they kind of reach understanding in a way it's really moving, and I think pretty compelling. So that show really like regenerated my faith in the procedural as a format. I mean, it's super entertaining, and the seasons are short enough to where you don't spend like 5 episodes being like, where is this show going? Like, what's the line here?
I believe all of the episodes are on Amazon Prime.
That is correct.
Right now. I've seen some of The Wire, not all. I did really enjoy it. I think I was surprised how much that I enjoyed it, because I don't typically get into those prestige dramas that are always on best series, like Breaking Bad, Mad Men, The Shield. I don't know, is that one? I don't know.
Yeah, The Shield was entertaining at points, but it wished it was The Wire, and it wasn't.
Because I feel like with a lot of those shows, there's just like an undercurrent of misogyny that I can't ignore. And I didn't really feel that with The Wire.
Yeah, the Wire addresses that straight on. I mean, it's like, these are aspects of it. And the women in it, like, clearly understand what the situation is, and also are overt about, no, we're not letting this pass. Like, this is the way things are. And we're going to, like, Sonia Sohn, who plays Kima, the detective, she is so cool and so awesome, and just makes it clear that she's just not the kind of person that anybody gets to mess with, that she's completely fearless. Like, she goes up on these gang members, I'm not afraid of you at all, I'm not intimidated by you at all, I have a job to do and I'm going to do it. And she's just an absolutely fantastic, one of my favorite characters in television.
So spend your hours binge watching. The sun will explode before Law and Order ends. So there will always be Law and Order episodes to watch.
Right. Well, I mean, I will say that my wife has a binge watching project. I think we were talking about this, has taken on Grey's Anatomy, and she's like, I'm committed to getting to the end of it. I'm like, there's no end. It's like season 17 and ongoing. So
yeah, that's really funny. I just got a text message from someone while we were talking about this, where it says Grey's Anatomy will explore the coronavirus pandemic during season 17. So
of course it will.
That'll be something
I think
to
Law and
look forward
Order.
to.
I think Law and Order actually got canceled in the middle of the 20th season, which was probably for the best, because I mean, I love Sam Waterston and whatever, but the last like half of it a little bit gets to be a parody of itself. Like, they had too many like ripped from the headlines episodes, which they always had an element of it, but it got like way too formulaic. Whereas like the earlier seasons, there was a kind of more openness and complexity to it. So, all right, well, that was a lot to digest, but thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
We'll see you next time.